Welcome to another deep dive today. We're going to be tackling, I guess you could say, the evolving landscape of education, in the digital age.
Yes.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at the challenges and opportunities presented by this generation that's grown up immersed in technology.
Right.
People call them digital natives these days.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered how this, constant exposure to tech shapes the way these kids learn or even think?
Well, it's an interesting question, and it's one that's led to a lot of debate in the education world. The term digital native itself was actually coined by Mark Prensky back in 2001.
Yeah.
And it's really become this kind of catch-all phrase to describe anyone born after 1980.
Yeah.
And it tends to suggest that they have just this natural affinity for technology.
Right.
But does simply growing up surrounded by digital tools, iPads and computers and everything.
Right.
Does that automatically make you a digital expert?
It's like assuming someone who grew up around bookshelves automatically understands literary theory. Right?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Just being immersed in something doesn't mean you're an expert.
Exactly. And more and more research is actually starting to challenge this assumption
Yeah.
of this inherent digital fluency.
Interesting.
So for example, there's this EU Kids Online survey.
Okay.
And they looked at a ton of children, over 25,000 across 19 European countries.
Wow.
And they found that there's actually significant variations in how young people access and use the internet.
Huh.
So clearly it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
So we can't just lump an entire generation together and assume they all have the same digital skills.
Right.
It reminds me of a situation I heard about at a UK university.
Oh, really?
Where the senior management actually needed awareness sessions.
Wow.
To help them understand the expectations of their Gen Z students.
Oh, my God.
It seems like there's this real gap in understanding between, those who grew up with technology.
Right.
And those who came before.
Absolutely. And I think this is where the concept of digital literacy becomes really, really crucial.
Okay.
Because it's not just about knowing how to use the latest gadget or, the latest app or anything like that. It's about possessing this deeper understanding of the digital world, being able to critically evaluate information, navigate online spaces safely, even consider the ethical implications of technology use.
So even if you're comfortable using social media or searching online, that doesn't automatically mean you're digitally literate.
Exactly. It's about developing a much more nuanced and critical approach to technology.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is that research has shown that even among these so-called digital natives, there's this significant gap in digital literacy skills.
That's surprising. I would have thought growing up with technology would have given them kind of a natural advantage.
You would think, right? But it's one of those common misconceptions. There was a study back in 2004 that actually found that many students have lower level digital skills than we might expect. And this really highlights, the importance of incorporating digital literacy into education from an early age.
It seems like we're shifting the focus away from a generational label to a more individualized understanding of how people interact with technology.
Exactly. And this shift, I think, is essential for meeting the diverse needs of all learners in this digital age. It's about recognizing that everyone, regardless of when they were born, needs to develop these crucial skills to really navigate the digital world effectively.
This reminds me of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which emphasize the importance of, quality education and reducing inequalities.
Right.
So how does digital literacy connect to these goals?
Well, I think digital literacy is actually key to achieving those goals. When people have the skills to access information and connect with others and contribute to society online, that directly contributes to better education, better health, and overall well-being.
Yeah.
Technology can really break down these traditional barriers and create more equitable opportunities for learning and growth.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic for a second.
Yeah.
There are definitely also challenges involved in integrating technology into education.
Absolutely.
I imagine it's not always a smooth process.
Oh, you're absolutely right. One of the biggest hurdles we face is this lack of adequate teacher training
Okay.
in how to effectively use technology for learning.
So it's not just about having the technology available.
Right.
It's about knowing how to use it in a way that actually enhances the learning experience.
Exactly. And there's been research showing that faculty knowledge and attitudes
Okay.
often act as barriers
Uh-huh.
to adopting digital technology in education.
Interesting.
A lot of educators are still clinging to those traditional teaching methods, perhaps feeling overwhelmed or unprepared to fully embrace the potential of these digital tools.
I can understand that. It's like asking someone who's used to navigating by the stars
Yeah.
to suddenly rely on GPS.
Yeah.
It takes time to adapt and learn these new ways of doing things.
That's a great analogy. Some educators might feel like they're navigating this brand new world, trying to catch up,
Right.
while their students are already fluent in the language of technology.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we support educators in making this transition to a more digitally integrated classroom?
It's a crucial question, and one that requires, I think, a multifaceted approach. We need to provide educators with the training and the resources and the support. They need to feel confident and competent in using technology effectively.
Yeah.
It's about moving beyond simply using technology as a substitute for traditional methods and really integrating it into the fabric of teaching and learning.
So we're talking about a more fundamental shift in how we approach education, not just adding a few gadgets to the classroom.
Exactly. You know that old industrial age model of education?
Right.
With its emphasis on standardized testing and one-size-fits-all lectures.
Uh-huh.
It's just simply not serving the needs of today's learners.
Okay.
We need to move towards a more student-centered approach
Right.
that embraces the unique ways in which these digital natives learn and process information.
What would that look like in practice?
Well, think about the 5E instructional model.
Okay.
Engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. This model really emphasizes active learning,
Okay.
where students are encouraged to discover and construct their own knowledge, rather than passively absorbing information. And technology can play a really powerful role in facilitating this type of learning.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Could you give an example of how the 5E model could be applied using digital tools?
Absolutely. Let's imagine you're teaching a history lesson about ancient Rome.
Okay.
Instead of simply lecturing about the Colosseum,
Right.
you could start by engaging students with a 360-degree virtual tour,
Oh, wow.
allowing them to explore the space, ask questions, make observations.
That's so much more engaging than just looking at a picture in a textbook.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you could move on to the explore phase
Okay.
by having students research different aspects of the Colosseum using online resources. They could work in groups to gather information,
Right.
compare findings, and really develop their own understanding.
So they're actively constructing their own knowledge
Yeah.
instead of just passively listening.
Exactly. Then the explain phase is where you, as the educator, can provide more structured guidance,
Okay.
helping students connect their findings to historical concepts and theories.
Gotcha.
The elaborate phase allows them to apply their learning by creating a presentation or writing a story or even designing a virtual model.
It sounds like this model really encourages students to think critically and creatively.
Yeah.
And the evaluate phase.
That's where you can assess their understanding through various methods, maybe project presentations, peer feedback, online quizzes, even self-reflection activities.
This approach seems so much more aligned with how digital natives naturally learn and engage with the world.
Exactly. It leverages their strengths.
Yeah.
And helps them develop the skills they need to thrive in this digital world.
This has been incredibly insightful. It's clear that there's a lot to consider when it comes to educating these digital native. It's not just about giving them access to technology,
Right.
but about fundamentally changing how we approach teaching and learning.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about embracing innovation, challenging those assumptions, and creating learning experiences that are engaging and relevant and empowering for all students.
And this leads us to a question for you, our listener.
Okay.
If these digital natives are already shaping the future of education,
Yeah.
what responsibility do we all have to ensure they have the skills and critical thinking abilities to navigate the digital world ethically and effectively?
That's a question worth pondering.
And one we'll continue to explore in our next deep dive.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon to discuss specific trends in social media adoption within education.
Okay.
And how platforms like Instagram and TikTok are being used to create these new and engaging learning experiences.
Sounds good. It's interesting to see how specific social media platforms, have become so integrated into education.
Yeah, what's going on there?
A recent systematic review I was reading that was actually published in the Asian Journal of University Education
Wow.
highlighted some pretty intriguing trends.
I'm all ears. Which platforms are we talking about?
So the study found that platforms like Facebook
Okay.
and Twitter,
Right.
or X as we should call it now,
Right.
WhatsApp, Instagram, these are some of the most popular choices for both educators and students.
Yeah, those are some of the big names out there.
Yeah.
For sure.
What makes them so well suited, I think, is their accessibility and ease of use.
Right.
They're widely available, familiar to most students, offer a variety of ways to share content, text images, videos, you name it.
Yeah.
I think that flexibility is really what allows for, these really dynamic and engaging learning experiences.
So instead of just reading a textbook, kids can,
Yeah.
watch a video lecture,
Exactly.
participate in some online forum,
Yeah.
even create their own multimedia projects.
Right.
So much more appealing than, just hitting the books.
Exactly. And I think it's not even just about the content itself. These platforms also facilitate much more interactive communication between the educators and the students.
Right.
It really shifts the dynamic from that one-way flow of information to a much more collaborative and engaging learning environment.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I've heard about teachers using, those visually driven platforms like Instagram and TikTok
Oh, yeah.
to create these engaging lessons, especially for things like art and design.
Absolutely. Design students, for example, are using Instagram to showcase their portfolios, get feedback from peers and instructors,
Right.
even connect with professionals in the field.
Oh, wow.
And TikTok, with its short-form video format, can be used to, explain complex concepts in a really fun and engaging way.
It's amazing to think that these platforms that were, originally just designed for social interaction.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Can now be repurposed for educational purposes.
And let's not forget about, the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
They became lifelines for remote learning,
Absolutely.
bridging that gap between physical classrooms and, these virtual learning environments.
It was a time of such rapid innovation and adaptation.
It really was.
I think it really highlighted the potential of social media in education.
Yeah. But of course, as with any powerful tool,
Right.
there are always challenges.
Of course.
Distraction, misinformation, privacy concerns.
Yeah, all those things that come with social media.
Yeah. Amplified in an educational setting.
Absolutely. And this is where I think digital literacy becomes even more crucial.
Okay.
It's not just about using these platforms effectively.
Uh-huh.
It's about understanding their limitations, navigating them safely,
Right.
being critical consumers of the information that's presented.
So it's not just about being tech savvy. It's about, being responsible and ethical.
Exactly. And I think this shift in thinking is particularly relevant as we consider the, evolving nature of education itself. We're moving beyond that traditional model of education as simply acquiring knowledge and skills to a much more holistic approach that emphasizes values, ethical considerations, really preparing students for a rapidly changing world.
It sounds like we're talking about this paradigm shift from Education 4.0, which focused on technology integration, to Education 5.0, which, emphasizes a more human-centered approach.
Exactly. Education 5.0 really recognizes that technology is just one piece of the puzzle. We need to equip students with a broader range of skills. Critical thinking, problem-solving, collaboration, communication, adaptability.
So many.
All these things that will really help them thrive in a world that's constantly evolving.
It's so fascinating to see how all these threads are connecting.
I know. It's really interesting, right?
Digital literacy, social media trends, evolving educational models. It paints a pretty complex picture of the future of learning.
But an exciting one, too. As we navigate this evolving landscape, I think it's just important to remember that there's always more to learn.
Right.
We need to be open to new ideas, adaptable to change, willing to embrace those opportunities that technology presents while remaining mindful of the potential pitfalls as well.
Right. So it's a delicate balance.
It is.
But it sounds like you're pretty optimistic about the potential for technology to really transform education for the better.
I believe that, by fostering digital literacy, embracing innovative teaching methods,
and cultivating a holistic approach to learning,
yeah,
we can really empower the next generation to thrive in this digital age.
Okay.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge the very real challenges that educators face in adapting to the needs of these digital natives.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about these paradigm shifts,
Right.
but what does that actually look like
Yeah.
in the classroom?
Let's shift our focus now to the practical realities of teaching in a digital age.
Okay.
What are some of the specific hurdles, educators face when trying to bridge that gap between these traditional methods and the learning styles of these students that have grown up immersed in technology?
One of the biggest challenges I think educators face is adapting their teaching methods to better align with how digital natives actually learn.
Yeah.
Because these students have grown up with instant information and interactive media and constant connectivity.
Right.
So these traditional lecture-based approaches
often fail to capture their attention or engage them fully.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to explain the beauty of a handwritten letter to someone who's only ever communicated through, emojis and instant messages.
Exactly.
The medium itself shapes how we, think and interact with the world.
Absolutely. Digital natives are accustomed to learning in this very non-linear exploratory way. They're used to having information readily available at their fingertips, being able to jump between different sources.
Right.
They crave interactivity, and they're very comfortable challenging those established norms.
So how can educators create a learning environment that resonates with these digital natives?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
It sounds like it requires a pretty fundamental shift.
It does.
In how we think about teaching.
One key aspect is incorporating much more active learning strategies.
Okay.
So instead of just passively absorbing information, students need to be actively involved in constructing their own knowledge.
Okay. So, more hands-on activities, group projects, problem-solving scenarios.
Yeah, all those things that really get them thinking critically.
Yeah.
Applying what they're learning in a practical way.
Yeah.
And technology can be a really powerful tool in facilitating this kind of active learning.
Absolutely.
Virtual simulations, interactive games, online collaboration platforms. All of these can create much more engaging and immersive learning experiences.
It sounds like we're moving away from that, traditional image of the teacher standing at the front of the classroom, imparting knowledge to,
yes,
rows of silent students.
It's the sage on the stage, right?
Yeah. Instead, the classroom becomes much more dynamic and collaborative and student-centered.
Precisely. The role of the educator shifts from being a dispenser of information to becoming more of a facilitator, guiding students through the learning process, providing support and resources, encouraging them to explore, experiment, discover for themselves.
This sounds amazing in theory, but I imagine it's not always easy to, implement in practice.
Of course.
What are some of the challenges that educators might face in making this transition?
Well, you're right. It's not without its hurdles.
Yeah.
This shift requires new skills, new ways of thinking about curriculum design, a certain level of comfort with technology, which not all educators possess.
It also occurs to me that there might be some resistance to change.
Oh, absolutely.
From teachers who are comfortable with those traditional methods.
For sure.
Or even from students who might be used to a more passive learning environment.
Absolutely. Change can be daunting.
Yeah.
And it's really important to address those concerns, I think, thoughtfully.
Right.
This might involve showcasing successful examples of innovative teaching practices.
Okay.
Providing opportunities for educators to share their experiences and best practices.
Right.
Even involving students in the process of, redesigning those learning experiences.
It sounds like professional development and ongoing support for teachers are really crucial for making this, this transition successful.
For sure.
Let's talk about assessment for a second.
Yeah.
If we're moving away from rote memorization and standardized testing, how do we effectively measure,
How do we know if they're learning anything?
Learning and progress in this new paradigm?
That's a great question. I think we need to move towards more authentic forms of assessment that really focus on evaluating students' abilities to apply their knowledge, think critically, solve problems creatively, demonstrate their understanding in meaningful ways.
So instead of just recalling facts, we're looking at how students can use what they've learned to, analyze situations, develop solutions, communicate their ideas effectively.
Exactly. The focus shifts from simply measuring what students know to evaluating how they can use that knowledge in real-world contexts.
It sounds like we're talking about this complete transformation.
Yeah.
of the educational landscape.
Right. It is a transformative shift.
Moving away from this standardized one-size-fits-all approach to something much more, personalized and dynamic.
And while there are undoubtedly challenges to overcome,
Right.
I think there's also this incredible opportunity to create a much more engaging, equitable, ultimately more effective learning experience for all students.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of learning in this digital age.
It has been fascinating.
It's clear that, technology is reshaping the educational landscape.
It really is.
In some pretty profound ways, presenting both challenges and opportunities.
Yeah.
For our listeners who are eager to learn more about this topic,
Yeah.
where would you suggest they go for further exploration?
Well, I would definitely recommend checking out the NMC Horizon reports.
Okay.
They offer some fantastic insights into emerging trends in educational technology.
Right.
Also, the work of researchers like Mark Prensky, who we mentioned earlier. He coined the term digital native. Don Tapscott, who really focuses on the impact of technology on society. And Penny Bishop, who explores the intersection of digital media and learning.
Wow, so many great resources.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out.
We'll be sure to include links to those in the show notes.
Great.
For our listener, as we wrap up our deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm left with this, sense of hope and possibility.
Yeah.
It's clear that technology has the potential to really transform education for the better, creating learning experiences that are, more engaging, more personalized, and more relevant for today's students.
I completely agree. By embracing innovation, fostering digital literacy, prioritizing student-centered learning, I think we can empower this next generation to not only navigate the digital world, but to shape it in positive and meaningful ways.
And on that note, we'd like to thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
We encourage you to continue to, dive deep.
Yeah.
To challenge those assumptions.
Keep asking those questions.
To ask questions. And to be an active participant in shaping the future of education.
It's an exciting time to be involved in education.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.